Whenever we think of the cause of loneliness, we think that being alone by ourselves and not having enough friends or maybe even girlfriends or boyfriends in our life is the cause of our loneliness. But if we try to examine this further on, the cause of loneliness goes in much deeper. And in this video, I wanted to share with you what the cause of loneliness is and what we can do to overcome this problem. So stay tuned and let's get started. Welcome back to this video. My name is Rav and I help people empower themselves. I provide insights and tools on how we can better our lives to become the best version of ourselves. So if you are new to this channel, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and hit that bell icon too, so you can receive updates every time I make a new post. Whenever we think about loneliness, we think that the cause of loneliness is just being all alone by ourselves, and we think that if we were in a group or if we were with more people, that our loneliness would just disappear. But this is a very big misconception. If you're in a new social setting, for example in a classroom where you do not know a lot of people, that's the situation which creates loneliness in your life, even though you are around a lot of people. And then vice versa, you might be living all by yourselves and be doing everything by yourself, and maybe probably even working from home, like in this situation right now, right? And you could still not be feeling lonely because you have all these things that keeps you engaged and you got things to do, right? So the cause of loneliness is not being around other people. That might be partly because of it, but that's not the actual cause. And to give you a little background about myself, I grew up feeling very lonely most of the times because at school I often felt disconnected with other students in my classroom, and at home I had two older sisters who were around the same age, and they would often partner with each other, and I used to feel left out all the time. And later when I grew up, I often felt left out in social situations and gatherings. When I had to really think down deep, I realized that my loneliness didn't come as a result of me being alone. So when I started to do more reading and more research on how I could be more social and start socializing and making more friends, I started realizing that a lot of the cause of loneliness was actually coming from the stories that I was telling myself. For example, a lot of times in social situations where it'd be like in family gatherings or in classroom, I would often tell to myself like, I don't belong here. So that was one of the causes of my loneliness. Sometimes, no matter how close the people would be, I used to often think that they don't understand me. So I often kept a distance from my family this way, and same thing with my friends, and I ended up feeling lonely. I started realizing that all these thoughts were being created because of the stories I was telling myself. And oftentimes these were coming from such an unconscious level that I wasn't even aware that I was actually holding myself back this way. And a lot of times these stories are being created by limiting beliefs and a lot of other like psychological issues that we might have hold on from our childhood. But when I started seeing this from a little bit different angle, I started realizing that a lot of these lonely thoughts or stories were being created because of the sense of lack or void that I had inside of myself. Now let's talk about what we can do to overcome this sense of lack or void. Normally this sense of lack or void comes because of our inability to deal with the present moment. Whenever we try to sit in stillness, that's when we start experiencing this extreme discomfort. And if you have read the book Power of Now, which is a great book by Eckhart Tolle, he talks about we having pain bodies. These pain bodies that exist within ourselves, and they create a lot of discomfort in our lives. And they create all these like crazy thoughts that keep coming back and keep haunting ourselves. And until and unless we are able to deal with these pain bodies, we might not be able to achieve any kinds of like fulfillment or happiness or satisfaction in our lives. Eckhart's simple solution is to just be in the now. Just stay in the present moment, try to be more grounded, and try to see things for what they are. And when you start doing this, you start realizing that a lot of these problems are just perceived in your minds, that they're not actually real world problems. Because if you start shining lights on these kind of thoughts and stories that we have, we start realizing that they're not actually true. They're just being created in our own minds because our mind is just trying to find some problems to give sense to these physical discomfort that might be being created in you. And that's what pain body is. If you start to take up practices such as meditation and yoga, you start to sense these kind of discomfort all the time. When you start to focus on these discomfort and see them for what they are and just don't focus on the story, you start seeing that they start dissolving away really gradually. And there's such a magic on that process because you start sensing this huge sense of relief after these discomfort fades away, right? Being in the now is definitely the solution, and I highly recommend you reading the book Power of Now, and also start looking up some meditations and just more mindful practices that's gonna shine some light to the kind of thoughts that you're having, because a lot of times we don't notice what kind of these thoughts that we're having, and they create a lot of problems in our lives. Another thing that I found very helpful on my own journey was when I started actively seeking out to find a life purpose for myself. Because before that I was trying out different things and I thought that I knew what I wanted to do, but at the same time in my core I wasn't in tune with anything that I was actually doing. Because sure, I was learning how to make films, and I was doing music, and I got a lot of satisfaction with that, but deep inside in my core I felt like there was some disconnect, because I was just doing that for almost like a sense of validation, or just to do something that was cool in other people's eyes, right? So there was a disconnect in that. It took me a lot of years to actually find my life purpose. Whenever I started just being open to finding my life purpose and trying to find a meaning for my own life, that's when I started to notice that all these kind of thoughts started to slowly disappear from my life. I definitely want to recommend you another book, which was recommended to me by my therapist when I was seeing him for social anxiety disorder. And as you can imagine, that was definitely a part of this whole cause of loneliness that I was having. And he suggested me that I started looking into the deeper meaning of life, because he thought that I was having some kind of like existential crisis at that time. And it definitely helped. And the book's name is Man's Search for Meaning, and it's a book written by an Austrian psychiatrist, Viktor Frankl. So I highly recommend that book to you. So these two things are something that I highly recommend: trying to find a purpose in your life and being in present moment. Now, to wrap it all up, we talked about the cause of loneliness is not actually being alone, because you can be in a group full of people and still be feeling lonely. What causes loneliness is often the stories that we tell ourselves, like these kind of stories that I share with you, right? I don't belong here, or they don't understand me, or he or she doesn't like me. So those kind of stories definitely hold us back. And if we started looking down even deeper, we find out that we start telling ourselves these kind of stories when we have this sense of lack or void, and we start feeling very unworthy. And we talked about how Eckhart Tolle describes this sense of lack or void as pain body in his book Power of Now. So I highly recommend you start reading that. And when we start becoming more mindful and being more in the present moment, we start becoming more aware of these stories that we tell ourselves, and they're just gonna start to slowly dissolve away, because you start seeing how silly these things are. And also we talked about how finding life purpose will give us more energy to become more of who we are. So that's definitely something I highly recommend as well. If you like this video, guys, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and also feel free to leave a comment down below to share your thoughts, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button, because there'll be more awesome contents like these coming in the future. And with that, I want to wish you all the very best. Goodbye and namaste.